Hi everyone, welcome to Romance Stories. Before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. This is a story about a rich girl and a poor guy. The male lead is quite lucky, and I bet you'd all love to have that kind of luck too, hee. Let's listen together. I rescued a woman from a garbage dump. The moment she woke up, she threw her arms around me and called me her husband. At first, I thought she was just a lost soul, a girl who had fallen on hard times, and out of pure compassion, I took her in. But as we lived together, I couldn't help but fall for this beautiful, charming woman. Just as I decided to propose, she vanished. When I saw her again, she had transformed into a wealthy heiress. She forced me in her car and declared fiercely, "You are my man. Don't even think about going anywhere else." It all started on my way home from work when a woman suddenly collapsed right in front of me. She grabbed the hem of my pants, pleading for help. When she finally came to, she stared at me for a long time, her eyes suddenly lighting up. She lunged at me, hugging me tight while calling me husband. "Beautiful, you've got the wrong guy." My body went stiff, and I had no idea where to put my hands. The woman in my arms began tracing the muscles of my chest, a satisfied look spreading across her face. Her crimson lips curled into a slight smirk, and her eyes shimmered with mischief. She leaned into my ear and whispered, "I haven't made a mistake. From now on, you're my husband." Even though she was stunning and had the exact femme fatale figure I adored, we had known each other for less than an hour. Wasn't husband a bit premature? Look, let go for a second. I tried to pry her hands from around my neck. I had been hauling bricks at the construction site all day and smelled like a gym locker, yet she didn't seem to mind at all. She eventually let go and sat back on my sofa, scanning my cramped rental. It was just a tiny rooftop unit in an old building, small but enough for one person. The place was a mess. Clothes tossed over the back of the couch, beer bottles rolling around the coffee table, and an unmade bed. The woman took a lap with her eyes, her brow furrowing in disapproval. "Your life is quite disorganized." I scratched my head sheepishly. "When you live alone, you don't really sweat the small stuff." "It's okay. I'll help you clean up from now on." She beamed at me. Hold on. Did she mean she wasn't leaving? Everything about this woman was bizarre. She had no ID, no phone, and when I asked where she lived so I could take her home, she claimed she couldn't remember. "Then let me call the police. They'll help you find your family." The moment I pulled out my phone, she lunged and snatched it away. "No, I want to stay with you." "Beautiful. Aren't you afraid I'm a bad person?" She laughed. "If you were a bad person, would your first instinct be to call the cops?" I gave an exhausted chuckle. "Even so, you can't stay here. What if you have a boyfriend or a husband looking for you?" She answered without a second of hesitation. "Caleb, I don't have a boyfriend. Honestly, I was worried I'd end up an old maid." "Wait, didn't you say you couldn't remember anything?" I looked at her skeptically. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around my waist, her eyes curving into a seductive crescent. "My mind doesn't remember," she whispered playfully, "but my body does." As she spoke, her hand slid under my tank top, tracing the ridges of my abs. My entire body stiffened, and my face flushed crimson. I hurriedly pushed her back. "I'm dirty, don't touch me." "Dirty where? You look perfectly clean to me." She reached out again. How is a grown man like me getting teased into a state of total confusion by one woman? Fine. If you don't mind the mess, you can stay. Just tell me the truth once you remember who you are." I took 2 quick steps back, putting my hands up like a shield. The woman beamed. "Thanks, hubby. Don't call me that. My name is Sam. Just call me Sam." "How about Big Brother Sam?" she suggested. I rubbed the back of my neck sheepishly and chuckled. "Sure, as long as it's not hubby." I was covered in sweat, my clothes caked with mud and cement. Usually, I just grab a basin of water and give myself a quick wipe down, but with a woman here, and one who looked as put together as she did, I felt a sudden surge of pride. I didn't want to look like a slob in front of her. I grabbed my change of clothes and headed down to the communal showers on the first floor. When I returned, the chaotic room had been transformed. It was so tidy I barely recognized it. The woman stepped out of the bathroom, droplets of water still glistening on her face. Seeing me, she rubbed her stomach and said poutily, "Big Brother Sam, I'm hungry." I stood there staring at her, subconsciously swallowing hard. She was wearing one of my oversized gray tank tops, which left her pale, slender arms and long legs completely exposed. The shirt was so long it reached her thighs. Her skin was incredibly fair. She had a delicate frame, yet she was surprisingly curvy in all the right places. I quickly looked away, vigorously rubbing my wet hair with a towel to keep my cool. Why are you walking around in just a tank top? It's too hot in here, and my clothes were filthy. I had to borrow yours. You don't mind, do you? No, I don't mind. I kept my head down and brushed past her into the bathroom to splash my face with cold water. When I came back out, she was sitting on the sofa, looking bored as she flipped through a magazine. The moment I saw the cover, the hair on the back of my neck stood up in pure embarrassment. That magazine was a gift from the guys at the construction site. I never even looked at it. It had just been sitting on the coffee table, gathering dust. A bunch of single laborers, when they get lonely, tend to look at pictures of pretty sisters in those magazines. I'm usually too exhausted after work to even glance at them. She looked up, her gaze scanning me from head to toe with a very peculiar glint in her eyes. How should I put this? That look was exactly like the way the single guys at the site look at beautiful girls. She leaned back against the sofa, propping her cheek on her hand with a smirk. Big brother Sam, you really do have a great body. I looked down at myself. My white tank top was damp from my skin, clinging to my torso and making my abs clearly visible. Her praise sent my self-esteem skyrocketing. I straightened my back, unconsciously flexing to show off my build. Her lips parted slightly as she scanned me from head to toe, the smirk on her face widening by the second. I'll go get us some food, I said, abruptly cutting off her intense gaze. If she kept looking at me like that, I felt like I was actually going to catch fire. She looked down at her attire, my oversized tank top, and gave a helpless shrug. I can't exactly go out looking like this, can I? I'll go buy something then. You wait here for me. Okay, big brother Sam. Make it quick, I'm starving. I gave a goofy grin. Got it, I'll be right back. Usually I just survive on instant noodles, but tonight I made an exception and bought a feast. She didn't eat much, just a few bites, and she was full, so I polished off the rest. As I was clearing away the takeout containers, she looked at me with a soft smile. Big brother Sam, are you always this good to women? I looked at her, confused. You took me in, you bought me all this great food. Are you just this nice to me, or are you this way with every woman? Her peach blossom eyes were full of charm, staring at me with a playful glint. A guy like me, living in poverty and hauling bricks. What women would there be? I laughed self-deprecatingly. She looked genuinely surprised. With a handsome man like you, Sam, how could women not like you? Does being handsome put food on the table? I have no house, no car. Why would any girl want to suffer through life with me? She smiled, sliding closer until she could rest her hand on my arm. I only care about looks. Money doesn't matter. I like handsome men with great bodies, men exactly like you. The spot where she touched me suddenly felt like it was itching. I shifted slightly to the side, trying to be the voice of reason. Once you've actually experienced a hard life, you'll realize a man like me isn't worth loving. She pressed even closer. Why not? You're so kind, Sam. Even if I have to suffer by your side, I do it gladly. This girl was way too forward. I truly couldn't handle it. I retreated to the rooftop to catch some air for a while, finally calming my racing heart. When I stepped back inside, she had already fallen asleep. The bed wasn't exactly big, but it wasn't tiny either. Plenty of room for one, a bit of a squeeze for two. She had been considerate enough to sleep on the sofa with a blanket, but the sofa was too short. She couldn't stretch her legs out and was curled up in a cramped, uncomfortable ball. I picked her up and gently laid her on the bed. Suddenly, her eyes flew open, and she grabbed my hand. Her dark eyes were filled with a sudden, sharp fear. Sam, I'm scared. Please, sleep here with me. Don't be afraid. I'm right here, I said, gently patting her hand to soothe her. She tugged on my arm, refusing to let go. I'm a very quiet sleeper. I won't bother you. Please, just sleep here beside me. Seeing the genuine terror in her eyes, I had no choice but to give in. She shifted to one side, leaving a generous space for me. As I lay down, my entire body was as stiff as a board. I didn't dare move an inch. She clung to my arm and eventually drifted into a deep sleep. Earlier, she had mentioned that she had completely forgotten her own name. If you don't mind, she had said, you could just call me wife. Every word out of her mouth was a bombshell, teasing me until I was utterly at a loss. Calling someone wife without being married felt, disrespectful, somehow. After tossing and turning, I still felt that taking her to the police station was the right thing to do. But when I managed to lure her just outside the station, she suddenly burst into uncontrolled sobs. Panicked, I cupped her face in my hands and wiped away her tears. She threw her arms around me, sounding deeply hurt. "If you dare take me in there, I'll tell the cops you kidnapped me." I didn't. "Beautiful, please don't ruin my life." She gripped my waist tight. "I don't care. That's what you get for trying to trick me." Left with no other option, I had to bring her back to the apartment. The moment we stepped inside, she grabbed my shirt, stood on her tiptoes, and pressed her lips against mine. In that second, my mind went completely blank. My hands gripped the doorframe behind me, paralyzed. The softness of it sent a wave of numbness through my body, a sensation that felt terrifyingly incredible. At 28 years old, this was the first time a woman had ever kissed me. "Big brother Sam, I'm yours now. You can't abandon me, okay?" She pressed herself against me, her soft hand caressing my face. I stared at her, dazed, and nodded slowly. All right, I won't abandon you." Looking at her lips, I couldn't help but swallow hard. I couldn't look away. As if possessed, my hands moved to her waist, pulling her flush against me. I asked her, "Are you truly willing to stay with a guy like me?" She nodded. "As long as you want me, I am yours." It sounds absurd, but after knowing each other for only 2 days, we were together. By the time our heated encounter ended, I had officially said goodbye to 28 years of bachelorhood. What surprised me most was that despite how good she was at teasing me, it turned out to be her first time too. I didn't know my own strength and ended up making her cry a few times. Her skin was so delicate. She was clearly a girl from a wealthy background who had never suffered a day in her life. Following a loser like me was a massive step down for her. Afterward, she fell into a deep sleep. I went out to buy some ointment for her. When I returned to apply it, she woke up with a start, her face flushing crimson with embarrassment. Later that afternoon, I took her out for a walk around town. I felt a pang of shame as I tapped my thin wallet. I expected her to pick out high-quality, expensive clothes. To my surprise, she led me straight to the street stalls to pick out a few cheap outfits instead. "Honey, let's buy some better quality clothes. Look at how delicate your skin is. This cheap fabric won't be comfortable for you." She linked her arm through mine and gave a gentle smile. "If you can wear it, why can't I? I'm a man. That's different. You work so hard. If I waste all your money on expensive clothes, you won't be able to afford to keep me around." I gave a shy laugh. "Of course I can. I have more than enough to take care of you." Once she finished picking out her outfits, she asked me to pay. The total was just over 200 yuan. I wanted to take her to a fancy restaurant for a big meal, but she refused, dragging me to the local market to buy groceries instead. What surprised me was how savvy she was with money. She bargained so skillfully that even the vegetable vendor remarked on how I'd married such a clever wife. I rubbed the back of my head awkwardly. "Oh, we aren't married yet." She hugged my arm and giggled. "As long as Sam asks, I'll marry him." "Really?" I looked at her, stunned. She nodded. "I'm already living with you. Are you planning to just love me and leave me?" "No, never. I feel like I'm dreaming." I squeezed her hand, never wanting to let go. Back at the apartment, she borrowed an induction cooker and some pots from the landlord downstairs. In no time at all, she had whipped up a meal for me. Her cooking was incredible. She turned simple ingredients into a variety of delicious dishes. While we ate, she piled all the meat from the plate into my bowl. "Eat up. Working at the construction site takes a lot out of you." I couldn't bring myself to eat it all and pushed it back toward her. "You eat it. I'm a man. I've got plenty of strength." She picked up a piece of meat with her chopsticks and fed it to me, acting sweet and pouty. "Sam, please, just eat it." I smiled and opened my mouth to take a bite. It was delicious. It turns out, having a woman in the house is such a blessing. She was so capable. She knew how to do everything. She wasn't afraid of hardship either. She had stayed in my tiny rooftop room for half a month without a single word of complaint. While I worked at the site, she would come by to bring me lunch. My coworkers would huddle around and tease me, their eyes constantly drifting toward her. Even though she was wearing a simple, coarse fabric shirt, she looked stunning and dignified. Standing in a crowd, she stood out like a diamond in the rough. "Go on, get out of here. What are you all staring at?" I chased them away in a huff. I rushed over to pull her into my arms, shielding her from my coworkers' gazes and led her to a shaded spot to rest. I want to pour her a cup of water, but couldn't find a disposable cup. She saw my own water bottle on the table, picked it up, and drank directly from it. Sam, I don't mind. She tightened the cap and beamed at me. I watched a droplet of water cling to her chin, and my throat tightened. I leaned down and kissed it away. After pulling back gently, I gazed at her with pure affection. So sweet, I murmured. Her face flushed a deep crimson, and she shyly pushed me away. Just eat your lunch. As I ate, she sat beside me, fanning me to keep the midday heat at bay. Being cared for like this brought me a level of happiness I had never known. Once I finished, she prepared to head home. But as she was walking across the construction site, a heavy wooden plank suddenly plummeted from the scaffolding above. In that split second of danger, I lunged forward and pulled her into my arms, using my broad frame as a shield. The massive board slammed into my back with a sickening thud, nearly dropping me to my knees. She let out a sharp cry, bursting into tears of pure terror. Sam, are you okay? Oh God, Sam. I gripped her shoulders and forced a reassuring smile. Don't be scared. I soothed her. I'm okay. Really. The site's supervisor insisted on taking me to the hospital for an x-ray. Fortunately, there are no broken bones, just some heavy swelling and deep bruising. She stood outside the exam room, her head bowed as tears streamed down her face. Seeing her like that made my heart ache far more than my back did. I pulled her into a hug and whispered, "You little dummy, stop crying. I'm fine." She clung to me, sobbing into my chest. "Sam, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "Don't say that," I replied firmly. "For you, I gladly lay down my life." She pulled back abruptly, pressing her hand over my mouth to silence me. "Don't ever say something like that again. Promise me." I took her hand and pressed it against my heart. "All right, I won't say it again." That evening, she stewed a pot of chicken soup, insisting I needed the nourishment to recover. Deeply moved, I pulled her into a long, breathless kiss until she finally pushed me away, gasping for air. "Sam, go eat your dinner." "Fine, but we're continuing this after I eat." She gave me an exasperated glare. "Is that the only thing on your mind?" After we showered, I couldn't wait to lift her onto the bed. Her hand slid beneath my tank top, gently stroking my bruised back. "Does it still hurt?" she whispered. I looked at her, wanting nothing more than to mold her into my body and never let go. After we made love, we fell asleep tangled in each other's arms. The longer I stayed with her, the more impossible it felt to imagine life without her. At first, my attraction was just a man's basic instinct. But now, I was head over heels in love with this woman. I felt jealous when other men looked at her. I felt devastated when she cried. I couldn't bear to see her suffer, and holding her brought me a peace I couldn't describe. It was a magical, sweet sensation. I wanted to marry her. I wanted us to grow old together. But deep down, I knew she wasn't an ordinary girl. From the way she carried herself and the way she spoke, it was obvious she was a wealthy heiress who had run away from home. I knew she was lying to me. She remembered everything. She just didn't want to tell me, and she certainly didn't want to go back. If that was the case, I decided to cherish every second I had with her. When she finally decided she wanted to go home, I would take her there. I loved her, and whatever choice she made, I would support it. If she truly wanted to be with me, I would marry her in a heartbeat. I'd endure any hardship to give her a good life. But if she woke up one day, bored of this lifestyle, and realized she didn't need me anymore, I'd let her go without a fight. We're adults. When it's time to move on, you move on. Clinging on would only make me look pathetic. I figured she'd last a month or two at most, but to my surprise, she stayed by my side for 6 months without a single regret. Even after half a year, I still didn't know her real name. The guys at the site mocked me, saying a toad like me was dreaming of swan meat. They told me not to get my hopes up, that she'd ditch me the moment she came to her senses. As time dragged on, I grew terrified. I realized my talk of letting go was just a brave face. If she actually left, I had no idea how I'd survive. I was addicted to her presence, the kiss she gave me when I got off work, the feel of her in my arms every night. She couldn't just make me crave her and then abandon me. I couldn't bear the thought of losing her. Every day before I open my front door, I take a deep breath, mentally bracing myself for the possibility that she'd be gone. This went on for a week. Fortunately, every time I opened that door, she was there. "Sam, you're home," She'd greet me, just like always. One evening, covered in mud and sweat, I couldn't wait a second longer. I pulled her into a fierce embrace, pinning her against the door and kissing her with a desperate intensity that actually startled her. She pushed me back slightly, eyes searching mine. "Sam, what's wrong?" I tried to steady my breathing, my voice trembling. "I love you." Tears instantly welled up in her eyes. Neither of us spoke. We just stared at each other for a long, heavy silence. "Sam, I love you too." This time, she was the one who became frantic. We were tangled together for hours, completely ignoring the dinner cooling on the table. After the storm passed, her stomach let out a loud growl. I kissed her forehead, feeling a pang of guilt. "Sorry, I'll let you get hungry." I got up to reheat the food while she lay resting on the bed. By the time we finished eating, it was 4 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I felt a desperate urge to smoke. She hated it when I smoked, saying it was bad for my health, so I had quit for her. But right now, the craving was overwhelming. As I watched her sleeping soundly, a dark, sudden thought crossed my mind. I want to hide her away forever. In the morning, she was up early, preparing breakfast for me as if nothing had changed. As she saw me out the door, her smile was incredibly tender. She waved at me. "Sam, stay safe, okay?" "I will. Wait for me to come home." She just kept smiling, offering no verbal reply. That entire day, I was plagued by a restless, gnawing anxiety. I kept thinking she was already gone. At lunchtime, I waited for an eternity, but she didn't show up with my meal. By the time the afternoon shift began and she still hadn't appeared, my heart sank. I was so distracted at work that I took a bad fall and injured my leg. My younger sister came up from our hometown to visit me. She told me the apartment was spotless, but completely empty. I let out a hollow, defeated laugh. She was really gone. My mother arrived in the city shortly after. She told me that the money I'd been sending home for years was finally enough. We had managed to build a 2-story house back home, and life was improving. Her only regret was that I still wasn't married. "You're almost 30, Sam. If you don't marry now, you'll be an old man. Your father and I are waiting for grandchildren." I pulled the blanket over my head, refusing to talk about it. After I was discharged from the hospital, I returned to the rental. She hadn't left a single thing behind, not even a note to say goodbye. Since things were better at home, my mother refused to let me stay in the city any longer. She was determined to drag me back to our village for a blind date. The matchmaker had found a girl 5 years younger than me. She was already waiting at our house, and my mother couldn't stop praising her to high heaven, saying the whole family was delighted with her. If I approved, we would set a wedding date immediately. I begged my mother for 1 month. If she didn't return after 30 days, I'd go back to the village. Without her, I learned the true meaning of a single day feels like a year. I spent every day walking the major streets of the city, desperately hoping to catch a glimpse of her. But though I scoured every alley and corner, I never found her. My mother and sister stayed at the rental, but I stayed at the construction site, unwilling to go back. If I went home, I'd just have to listen to them drone on about how wonderful the village girl was. In my heart, no one could ever measure up to her. On New Year's Eve, all my coworkers went out to celebrate. I bought a crate of beer and sat alone on the rooftop of the construction site building, drinking my sorrows away. The city night was deafeningly loud, yet I had never felt more isolated. I missed her so much it physically hurt. As the New Year's bells began to chime and the snow started to fall, I lay on that rooftop like a stray dog, burying my face in my hands and sobbing. If my father saw me like this, he'd surely break my legs and curse me for having no backbone. But what's so shameful about loving your woman? I loved her. I missed her. And yet, I didn't even know her name. I waited the full month, but she never came. On the 30th day of the Lunar New Year, I boarded the train home with my mother and sister. On the second day of the festival, my mother told me to bring gifts to the blind date's house to apologize for the delay. She had come to my house to meet me, but I wasn't there, leaving her waiting for 2 days. She lived in the next village over, not far, just a 30-minute motorbike ride away. When I brought the apology gifts to her house, she looked at me and shyly ducked her head. She seemed like a very gentle, quiet girl, the polar opposite of her. "My name is Luna," the girl said with a small smile. I nodded back. "Right, I'm Sam." She folded her arms timidly, stealing glances at me every now and then. Luna was a good girl, younger than me, still a student training to be a nurse at the district hospital. I didn't want to lead such a kind person on, so I told her straight out that my heart already belonged to someone else. She was curious about her story, so I told her how we met and how we loved. After listening, she let out a heavy sigh of disappointment, feeling sorry for my loss. "You'll be at a disadvantage if you follow a man like me," I said. She looked at me firmly. "Sam, you're a very good man. I made up my mind. I'm going to marry you." I looked at her in confusion. "Luna, I have someone else in my heart, and I've lived with her before. You don't mind that?" She shook her head. "No. After hearing your story, I'm even more certain that you're a man of deep feeling. Being with you won't be a mistake." Luna's reaction caught me completely off guard. Seeing the determination in her eyes made me feel a knot of unease in my chest. When I got home, my mother asked how the talk went. I sighed and said only one thing: "She's a good girl." My mother completely misread that. She thought I was smitten with Luna and went ahead to arrange the marriage. By the time I realized what was happening, the two families had already settled the engagement. The news of our betrothal spread through both villages like wildfire. If I backed out now, Luna would be the laughingstock of the community. At this point, I had to accept it. I was 29, my parents were getting old. They were waiting for a bit of joy in their final years, and I couldn't be so selfish as to make them wait for a ghost of a love that might never return. On the day of the engagement, I promised Luna I would treat her well. Time is the medicine that heals all wounds. I told myself that by being with Luna, I could finally forget her. Luna was an only child. Her mother had a leg ailment and couldn't walk, so in my spare time, I went to their house to help with the chores. Luna was wonderful to me, always caring and attentive. In truth, in the depths of my heart, I saw Luna as a younger sister. She was young, with a face so innocent it made you want to protect her. But I knew clearly that I felt no romantic spark for her. The feeling of being with her was nothing like being with her. Coming in from the fields, she prepared hot water for my bath. When I stepped out after washing up, she saw me and her face turned bright red. I stood before the mirror drying my hair when she suddenly wrapped her arms around me from behind. "Sam, let's truly be together," she said, meaning together as a man and a woman. But I couldn't. I genuinely felt nothing for her. I lifted her face and stared into her eyes for a long time, but I simply couldn't bring myself to kiss her. She closed her eyes, tilting her face up expectantly. I let go, threw on my heavy coat, and hurried out into the night. As the wedding day approached, my anxiety spiraled. Once married, I would be bound to Luna for life. I'd have to bury the memory of that other woman forever. Nightmares haunted me. I dreamed she returned, only to find Luna by my side. She looked at me with such devastating disappointment that she turned and ran, and no matter how hard I gave chase, I could never catch her. I'd wake up drenched in a cold sweat. Sitting in the yard smoking a cigarette, I made a final decision. I would call off the engagement. The next morning, I rode my motorbike to find Luna, but her house was swarmed with people. I heard her sobbing from inside. My heart sank as I rushed in. Her mother had fallen from the bed and was seriously injured. The moment Luna saw me, she collapsed into my arms, wailing. In the face of such grief, the words "I want to break up" died in my throat. My mother, out of pity, suggested Luna and her parents move into our house, but Luna refused, saying it wasn't proper before marriage. To help her, my mother pushed the wedding date even earlier. One last time, I traveled back to the city. The rental room was still there, gathering dust, silent and empty. I waited there for a full day and night. This is it, I thought. If you don't come back now, I'm getting married. When dawn broke, my heart finally went numb. On the wedding day, I steeled my resolve to live a good life with Luna and never look back. However, on the way to her village, my wedding procession was intercepted. A fleet of black luxury cars blocked the intersection, cutting off my path. I got out to see what was happening, only to be surrounded by a line of men in black suits and sunglasses. As strong as I was, I couldn't fight off that many people. They bound me and shoved me into a car, which sped out of the village and straight onto the highway. When I finally opened my eyes, I was in a massive hotel suite, a presidential suite, the kind I'd only ever seen on TV. My restraints had been removed. The room was silent. I scrambled off the bed, intent on escaping, but as I yanked the door open, a figure appeared before me, stopping me dead in my tracks. Looking at her, I was rendered utterly speechless. She was dressed in a sleek black power suit and towering black heels. Her lips were a vibrant crimson, and her sharp, piercing gaze locked onto mine. "Where do you think you're going?" she demanded. She shoved me back into the room, slammed the door, and pinned me against the wall, silencing any words I had with her mouth. That feverish, urgent kiss was a chaotic explosion of longing and the raw joy of reunion after our long separation. All my doubts and my sense of reason were left far behind. I slid my hands around her waist, seizing control of the moment without saying a single word. From the hallway to the bed, clothes were scattered everywhere. Afterward, she remained silent. She went into the bathroom alone to wash up, leaving me lying there in a state of brooding frustration. When she finally stepped out, she walked over to the bedside, picked up my wedding vest, and ripped the boutonniere from it. She let out a cold, mocking laugh. "You are my man. Don't even think about going anywhere else." "I don't even know your name," I snapped, glaring at her. "On what grounds am I supposed to listen to you?" "On the grounds that you love me," she replied, her voice laced with a touch of smugness. I had waited for her for so long, yet she never showed up. Instead, she chose to kidnap me on the very day of my wedding. As a man, I felt my self-respect being deeply trampled upon. Even though I loved her, the depth of that love only fueled my resentment. Why did she exploit my feelings and treat me like this? To be summoned and dismissed at her whim. Who did she think Sam was? I threw my clothes back on and shot her a cold look. As I turned toward the door, she sat elegantly on the sofa, swirling a glass of red wine. "You are going anywhere," she said calmly. I didn't believe her. Sure enough, the moment I stepped out the door, 4 bodyguards intercepted me. "What exactly do you want from me?" I roared at her. Her gaze shifted from my face and settled on my wedding suit. Her eyes suddenly darkened. "Sam, do you really want to get married?" "Yes," I said coldly. She stood up and walked over to me, touching the fabric of my cheap suit. She let out a soft laugh and looked up at me, her eyes brimming with tears. Seeing her cry made my heart ache instantly. I wanted nothing more than to pull her into my arms and comfort her, but I couldn't. If I showed her weakness now, she would look down on me forever. I wanted her to know that Sam, was not someone to be played with. When I was in the hospital, you left without a word. You left nothing behind. You wouldn't even tell me your name. What am I to you? If you truly loved me, would you have hidden your identity? Isn't sincerity the foundation of love? I pushed her away, uttering words I didn't entirely mean. "We're finished. If you have even a shred of respect for what we had, give me some dignity and let me go back to my wedding." She wiped her tears, her lips curling into a faint, mysterious smile. She grabbed my necktie, stood on her tiptoes, and whispered softly into my ear with a light chuckle. "Marry me, and I will give you dignity. Think of how much prestige the husband of the CEO of the Lou Group carries." I stood frozen in place. "The CEO of the Lou Group? You? What did you just say?" I stared at her in shock. She wrapped her arms around my neck, her eyes brimming with a seductive charm. "Didn't you want to know who I am?" she whispered. "I'll tell you. My name is Elena Lou. I'm the CEO of the Lou Group, and technically your big boss. That skyscraper at the construction site, that's Lou Group property. So, I've been laboring for her all along. She was the one at the top of the food chain. Instead of feeling honored, I felt humiliated. I shoved her away, my teeth gritted in fury. "Sam, marry me. I'll give you anything you want," she pleaded. "Elena Lou," I roared. She flinched, looking hurt and small. What's wrong?" I didn't answer. I stormed out of the hotel room and picked a fight with the 4 bodyguards outside. I was vibrating with rage, but I couldn't bring myself to take it out on her, so the guards became my punching bags. Elena rushed out, screaming at them, "Don't hit him! Stop!" After venting my anger, I was invited back into the suite. No matter how cold I was to her, she refused to let me go. She sat beside me, meticulously bandaging the cuts on my hands without saying a word. Looking at her like this, I honestly didn't know whose fault it was that we had ended up here. "Elena Lou, from the day you left without a word, we were over. Stop lying to yourself, okay?" The bandage in her hand slipped to the floor. The temperature in the room plummeted to freezing. After a long silence, she looked up at me with a mocking smile. "If it's over, why did you touch me? What am I to you? Just some loose woman anyone can have? Don't you dare say sorry to me. I don't want to hear it. She threw the rest of the gauze aside and walked out. With guards at the door and the hotel being her family's property, I was trapped. 3 days later, a man came to see me. He claimed to be Elena's fiancé. I felt the sting of betrayal all over again. She had a fiancé, yet she had spent months tangled up with me. She had turned me into the third man, a homewrecker forcing me to suffer the weight of a guilty conscience. The man spoke with unbearable arrogance. Elena is my woman. Stay away from her, or I'll make you regret it. I let out a dry scoff. If you can get me out of here, I'll actually thank you. Fine. I'll help you escape her control, but on one condition. What condition? He stepped closer, standing on his tiptoes just to try and gain a half-inch of height over me. Never see Elena Liu again for the rest of your life, he hissed. Something about this man felt dangerous. He looked high class, but his words dripped with the aura of a common thug. Elena hated the smell of smoke, yet this man reeked of acrid tobacco. How could someone like this be her fiancé? He smuggled me out of the hotel onto the cover of night. The car sped away from the city and onto the highway. Looking at the route, it seemed we were heading toward my hometown. I didn't have a phone or any way to communicate. I wondered if she would worry when she found me gone. Hey, can I borrow your phone for a second? I asked. For what? He asked, his eyes sharp with suspicion. I forced a smile. Relax. I just want to call my family and tell them I'm safe. I didn't dare mention Elena's name for fear of setting him off. He let out a sinister laugh. I really don't know what Elena sees in an idiot like you. You really have no idea, do you? What do you mean by that? I reached out to grab his collar, wanting an answer. Suddenly, a sharp, white-hot pain exploded in my side. My whole body convulsed. I looked down. The bastard had hit me with a taser. I was thrown from the car and knocked unconscious. When I came to, I was in the middle of a desolate forest, my body bound tightly with coarse rope. The man stood over me, one hand in his pocket and a cigarette dangling from his lips. He squinted down at me with the cold, predatory eyes of a career criminal. 2 of his henchmen were nearby, rhythmically digging a hole. What do you think you're doing? I roared, struggling against the ropes. He knelt, slowly grinding the glowing cherry of his cigarette into the back of my hand. He patted my cheek mockingly before spitting in my face. What am I doing? You slept with my fiancé. Is burying you alive really asking too much? You're lying. You're not her fiancé. I spat back. Elena Liu would never touch a piece of filth like you. He let out a jagged snarl and grabbed a fistful of my hair, jerking my head back. She doesn't like me? You think she prefers a dirt-poor loser like you? Let me tell you something, kid. You're just one of her many playthings. Don't go thinking you're special. Once she's bored, she'll kick you to the curb. By then, you'll realize you're worth less than her pet dog. I burst out laughing. The more he spoke, the more it proved he didn't know the first thing about Elena. There were no other men. From start to finish, there had only ever been me. What are you laughing at? He asked, his expression darkening into something murderous. I stared him down with pure contempt, fueling his rage. I'm laughing at how pathetic you are. Elena Liu doesn't care for you at all. To be honest, she's a woman who appreciates aesthetics. A man with no face, no assets, and a weak constitution like yours? She wouldn't even spare you a glance. He roared and buried a fist into my face. This man was rotten to the core. I didn't know the history between him and Elena, but a wave of intense worry for her hit me. Did she know how dangerous this man was? Was she safe? I thrashed against my restraints, but the ropes wouldn't budge. Once the hole was finished, he moved to bury me. I was kicked into the pit. He and his men grabbed their shovels, and the dirt began to rain down on me. As the shadow of death loomed, my mind was filled with nothing but Elena Liu. I felt a crushing weight of regret. She had come to find me, and I had been so cold, so cruel. Her disappearance and her silence must have had a reason I refused to hear. I had hurt the only woman I ever loved. Elena, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes, waiting for the dark. I stopped struggling and stopped screaming, quietly waiting for death to claim me. But just as the dirt reached my chest, the sudden, shrill wail of police sirens tore through the woods. The 3 men instantly froze, panic flaring in their eyes as they prepared to bolt. Refusing to leave without a parting blow, the man swung his shovel at my head. I ducked, but the blade still clipped me, drawing a hot trail of blood. Flashlights cut through the darkness, dancing across the forest floor. He dropped the shovel and vanished into the shadows. I managed to shout for help, but I never expected to see Elena Liu. She stood at the edge of the pit, looking down at me with a face contorted in fury. She scooped up a clod of dirt and hurled it at me, cursing. "Are you a pig? Do you just listen to anyone who talks to you? If I hadn't installed a GPS tracker on that wedding car, you'd be a corpse by now." Even as she scolded me, she was sobbing. My lower body was pinned onto the earth, immovable. Seeing her cry so hysterically made my heart twist with agonizing guilt. "I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry." The police dug me out, and she didn't care about the mud or the filth covering my skin. She lunged into my arms, clinging to me with everything she had. "Sam, you absolute idiot. If I had been one step later, I would have lost you forever. You moron. Why did you follow him? Do you hate me that much? If you hate me, just say it to my face. Why did you do this to me?" She beat her fists against my shoulders, her tears falling like rain. I cupped her face and silenced the rest of her words with a kiss. Her hands, which had been gripping my shirt in a white-knuckled vice, slowly softened and wound around my neck. I pulled back just an inch, resting my forehead against hers, looking at her with all the tenderness I possessed. "Elena, I love you. I'm so sorry." "Sam, you don't hate me anymore?" she asked, her voice small and wounded. I wiped away her tears with my thumb and smiled. "I never hated you. My coldness was just my pride talking. I'm sorry I hurt you." "Actually," she whispered, "the night before your wedding, I went to find Luna." I looked at her, stunned. "You did? She's a very sensible girl. She told me she knew your heart always belonged to me. Since I had returned, she said she was giving you back to me. Then why didn't you just come and find me?" "Because you actually agreed to marry her." I didn't say goodbye when I left because I didn't want it to be over. It meant I was coming back. "How dare you try to get married?" I was so angry I wanted to tease you a little. But then your attitude was so cold. I thought you didn't love me anymore. I pulled her into a tight embrace, filled with shame. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She squeezed me back. "It was my fault too. If I had just been honest with you sooner, none of this would have happened." Mark, the man who claimed to be her fiancé, was later arrested for attempted murder. Elena Liu finally laid everything bare. It turned out that Mark was her father's secretary, a man with the heart of a wolf who had been plotting to seize the position of CEO. A year ago, her father suffered a sudden, suspicious heart attack. Mark immediately took control of the Liu Group and was even responsible for her father's death. He then used the title of her fiancé to cement his role as CEO. When she returned to the country, he feared she would expose his true face and tried to imprison her. She managed to outsmart him and escaped during a moment of lapsed security, which was when I found and rescued her. Mark had been searching for her everywhere. Because she lacked concrete evidence of his crimes, she had to stay in hiding. She spent 6 months working with friends to investigate him and reclaim the company. She was terrified that if Mark found out I had saved her and was living with her, he would murder me in revenge. That was why she chose to leave without a word. She had planned to wait until Tong Fu was behind bars before returning to me. She never expected I would jump into a marriage so quickly, forcing her to change her plans and kidnap me. It was this very move that tipped Mark off to my existence. He wanted me dead so he could eliminate the competition, marry Elena, and fully possess the Liu Group. Learning the truth made me want to kick myself. She had done everything for me, protecting me at every turn, while I had treated her with such coldness. While I was recovering in the hospital, she was swamped with corporate affairs and couldn't visit. I tossed and turned in my hospital bed, the longing for her gnawing at my insides. Luna came to visit, looking radiant and completely unfazed by the canceled wedding. She told me that Elena had arranged for her mother to see the best specialists at a top hospital. Furthermore, Elena had even facilitated Luna's job transfer to the city. Hearing this, my self-loathing only grew. I must have saved the world in a past life to deserve a woman like Elena Liu in this one. "Sam, Sister Elena is both beautiful and kind. You better not let her down," Luna told me with a serious face. I gave a sheepish laugh. It's me who isn't worthy of her. After being discharged, I moved back into my old rental room. Elena still didn't come to find me. Driven to the brink of madness by how much I missed her, I went to the company to seek her out. I didn't get an audience with her immediately. Instead, I was assigned a job. The CEO's orders are for you to be her personal driver. Well, this was my own fault. I deserved her cold shoulder. When Elena finally stepped out of the office building, I waved at her, but she acted as if I were invisible. She got straight into the back seat and said coldly, "Drive. We're going home." "Which home?" She glared at me. "To my house." "Yes, CEO Lou." When we arrived, she practically chased me away, telling me to be back on time to pick her up the next morning. This routine dragged on for a week. I finally reached my breaking point. I couldn't handle her icy indifference a second longer. On the way to the office, I suddenly yanked the steering wheel and headed straight for my old rental unit. She erupted in a fury, shouting at me, "Sam, what are you doing? Take me to the office right now." I kept my mouth shut and kept driving, ignoring her protests. When we arrived at the foot of the building, she refused to get out. I simply scooped her up in my arms and carried her all the way to the rooftop. Once inside the room, I kicked the door shut, set her down, and pinned her against the wall with a kiss. She resisted at first, struggling against me, but soon her defiance melted into a passionate response. I gripped her slender waist and asked in a low, husky voice, "Are you still angry?" "As long as you know you messed up," she replied haughtily, turning her face away. I caught her chin, forcing her to look me in the eye. Her gaze gradually softened, and her eyes began to shimmer with unshed tears. "Elena, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." I took her hand and pressed a lingering kiss onto the back of it. She gave a small, shy smile, her face flushing with embarrassment as she finally nodded. "I forgive you." Overjoyed, I pulled her close, my lips slowly approaching hers. She closed her eyes tight, her hands bunching up the fabric of my shirt. Unlike our previous heated encounters, this kiss was a careful exploration. I took my time, savoring her sweetness. A numbing electric sensation washed over me, a feeling so immersive I never wanted to pull away. We stayed wrapped in each other's arms, losing track of time from morning until noon. Once she had finally stabilized the company's affairs, I proposed to her. I gave her a ring I had crafted with my own hands, engraved with both of our names. It wasn't expensive, and it certainly didn't match her status, but she absolutely adored it. We got married, and our life together since then has been nothing but pure bliss. Elena once confessed that she fell for me at first sight. Personally, I suspect she mostly just fell for my face and my build. Every time we're together, she still loves to trace my abs and stare at me with that same intensity. Even during high-level board meetings, I catch her eyes wandering over me. In those moments, her gaze is filled with such charm and desire that it makes me want to drop everything and love her right then and there. People say I'm eating soft rice, living off a wealthy woman, but I couldn't care less. I am more than happy to live off Elena Lou. If this is soft rice, then I'm willing to eat it for the rest of my life.